Okay, we are broadcasting and this is being recorded, Judge Yu.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. We're waiting for the attendees slot to be fully populated. So far, we have 4 people. And I think it would be a good time for us to take roll.
All right. Bashan, Felmuth,
Here.
Hamilton, Kirkmeyer,
Here.
Justice Petru,
Here.
Sarush,
Here.
Judge Yu.
Here, and thank you. In looking at the attendees, I don't see any of our working group members who would need to be elevated to a panelist. Thank you all for being here. I think this is going to be a really interesting and good meeting. There's a lot of work that the State Bar staff has done to collect additional information, and we'll be looking at that soon in the PowerPoint. It looks like Ms. Bashan is just joining us now, Christopher.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi,
Welcome,
Sharon.
Sharon.
So we're only missing Steve Hamilton, and perhaps he's delayed in court. Before we start, I wanted to check and see if you would, for us, Leah, just sort of state the issues that we're addressing today so the public members are very clear, and then we can ask them if they have any comments about the issues before the pilot subcommittee today.
Okay, I'm actually gonna give Chris the opportunity
Oh,
to do this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Leah, and I'm sorry, Christopher.
Go ahead, and Chris.
That's okay.
I'm happy to jump in if you'd like me to, but why don't you
Thank
go?
you. Thank you both.
So the only agenda item for today's meeting is to discuss an additional region in Northern California to include Sacramento County for the legal paraprofessionals license to roll out in phase 1 of implementation. So there's already a region that the working group has recommended for Southern California, Central California, and the Bay Area. And today the subcommittee is going to discuss and identify a region to include Sacramento, north of the Bay Area.
Okay, Sacramento as possible anchor. So thank you so much, Christopher. With that issue stated so well and clearly by Christopher, I'm going to check and see if the attendees from the public would like to make any comment. And if so, could you please raise your virtual hand, and then we'll be happy to hear from you. Give some time for people to raise their hand. It might be difficult in a vacuum, so what we'll do is we can ask Christopher to pull up the PowerPoint, and then if there's time, we can pause and come back to the public and see if they have any comments. It looks like no one has any comments at present.
And when you do eventually raise your hand, there's a button at the bottom of your Zoom window that says raise hand, and it has the icon of a hand. And when you push that, it will be able to see that you've raised your hand and we can unmute you. Okay, I'll pull up the PowerPoint, Joji.
Thank you so much. And Steve Hamilton is here now.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi,
Welcome.
Steve. Looks like you might have come from the outside. Your glasses are still dark.
Yes, I went outside. I had just finished a hearing and took a break.
Oh, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
All right.
So we have everyone.
One moment, Joji, I'm going to bring up my notes.
Okay, thank you, Christopher.
All right, thank you, Joji. And just let me know when you'd like me to begin the presentation.
Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay.
And oh, sorry, let me just jump in. If people have questions from the working group, they can just raise their hand and interrupt you.
Oh, that would be terrific. And I have the, I do have the list of attendees up so I can see folks' hands. Like Julie, just raise your hand. But if I happen to miss it because I'm so focused on the slides, please interrupt me.
Thank you, Chris.
I can.
Thank you so much.
Julianne, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have a request. I was reading through my notes of the last meeting, which I have here as February 16. Linda or Chris, has that PowerPoint for that meeting been posted somewhere?
Great question, Linda. I don't remember if we posted the slides for the, They would normally be in the Dropbox, but Linda would.
We don't
Okay.
usually post the PowerPoint slides. That's not part of meeting materials, right, Linda? We can send them out, but you don't usually post them.
We have been putting them in the Dropbox, and I can double check to see.
okay.
I don't think that I got this one from you. This is from the last meeting of this subcommittee, is what you're referring to, Julie?
Yeah, I would love the PowerPoint to the last meeting, which I have here as February 16, 2021, and also the one you're showing today.
So Chris, if you send that to me, I can add that to the Dropbox.
Yeah, I will do that. I'm just making a note to myself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Julianne, is getting it post this meeting going to work for you?
Oh, it'll be fine. I was just reading my notes from the February meeting, and I had no recollection or very little recollection of what we talked about then. So I wanted to get the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. All right, so unless anyone else has any comments or questions, the floor is yours, Christopher.
Thank you. All right, so this slide deck is a few slides longer than our slide decks normally are because staff have taken quite a bit of time to gather additional data to present to you, and we've spoken with the legal services organizations and some of the self-help centers, and so we're going to do a little bit of a longer report back, and then we're going to frame the discussion for today's agenda item. So since the February 16th subcommittee meeting, which was our last meeting as a subcommittee, staff has analyzed graduation data for paralegal programs in California. And that data is a select data set that comes to us from the ABA. They've asked staff to keep the data internal. So what we did is we ran the numbers internally. We don't have a slide that presents them to you, but we can talk about sort of the graduation rates for paralegals in California in particular counties. We've looked at the number of Californians that legal services organizations report having to turn away because the person seeking help is over income or has too many assets. And we did those two analyses in order to assess the regions in California that the subcommittee has already recommended to make sure that the data didn't suggest that those regions were for some reason the wrong choice. And I'll just preview for you that it supports the subcommittees and the working groups existing recommendations for implementation regions. And we use that data to assess an option or options for Northern California with Sacramento County as an anchor. Staff also met with legal services providers, civil legal aid providers that serve the counties that would feature in phase 1 of program implementation to get their take on what the justice gap is like there and how the local community might be able to get the word out about this new option for modest means and moderate income Californians. We also met with the self-help centers serving each of the 7 counties, Orange County in Southern California, Fresno, Merced, and Tulare in Central California, Alameda and Santa Clara County in the Bay Area. And we met with the self-help centers serving Sacramento County, all thanks to subcommittee member Fariba Sarouche, who helped us organize those. And Justice Petru has contacted the presiding judges of most of the courts that for these jurisdictions that would participate in phase 1. And my understanding is those conversations are ongoing.
Let me just be quite clear about that, which is that those are extremely preliminary, and we've not had a substantive discussion as we wait to see more about how the program is going to actually look.
All right, thank you. Okay, so on February, this is sort of to frame the decision and discussion that will come at the end of the presentation. On February 26th, the full working group passed a resolution on geographic implementation of the new license. So I paraphrased the resolution so that it would fit on the slide, but the crux of it is that the initial phase of the program will be limited to Northern California, Central California, and Southern California in the following counties: Alameda and Santa Clara in the Bay Area, Fresno, Merced, and Tulare in Central California, Orange County in Southern California. And then the working group realized that the Bay Area is rather unique in its justice gap, its number of potential legal paraprofessionals and its client needs, so that it would behoove the state to have another implementation region north of the Bay Area to include Sacramento County. So the business discussion item for today is to identify that Northern California region. As a refresher, some characteristics of the implementation or rollout regions that the working group has already approved for recommendation is each of those counties has at least 250,000 residents, which is relevant to ensuring sufficient clients to participate. The Bay Area region is 3.6 million, Central California and Southern California are 1.7 and 3.2 million respectively. Each county, except for Merced and Tulare, ranks in the top 1, 2, or 3 counties for NorCal, Central California, or Southern California for likely number of legal paraprofessionals to participate when looking at bar exam scores. So again, we looked at scores for the folks who scored below a 1390 on the bar exam in the last 10 years as individuals that will likely have a JD and be interested in becoming a legal paraprofessional. So with the exception of Merced and Tulare, these regions rank in the top 1 to 3 for number of legal paraprofessionals. Each region has at least one county with a high civil justice gap measure, and the regions are contiguous counties. Just where the data came from, US Census Bureau was for general population figures. Bar exam data came from the state bar. The justice gap measures, we looked at pro per litigant data from the Judicial Council for family law cases, since that's an implementation practice area, and then attorney density data from the state bar. And this subcommittee recommended, and the full working group adopted, that the county will refer to the court system that has jurisdiction over the matter rather than where the client lives or where the legal paraprofessional provides the services. Okay, so now for the new data. Since February 16th or 26th, staff has looked at what we're just calling the turnaway rate for civil legal aid in California for modest means, for primarily modest means and moderate income Californians. The data available to us is from a 4-week period in 2019, when most legal services providers in the state reported to the state bar the number of folks who came to them seeking help with a civil legal issue. And the reason that the organization couldn't serve them is because they made too much money. So it wasn't that the issue was not one with which legal aid could help, because there was a different turnaway option for that. And it wasn't that the program didn't have the bandwidth to serve the person because they were maxed out in their cases. It was just that the Californian made too much money. So in that 4-week period statewide, legal aid had to turn away for about 4,000 Californians because they were over income. We broke it down. Now the legal service providers didn't report it by county, and many, but not all of them, serve multiple counties. Most of them, though, a few are statewide. Most of them are at least regional. So, they might serve the East Bay, so Alameda and Santa Clara County. Maybe they also serve Contra Costa County. We were able to sort of hone in on about how many Californians were turned away in that 4-week period from the implementation counties. And it was about 1,700 Californians sought services in 2019 in that 1-month period. From legal services organizations that provide significant help to the 7 counties, including Sacramento, that the working group has recommended for phase 1. And significant services, we just looked at organizations that spent at least $200,000 providing legal aid in that year to that county. So that would be multiple legal services staff members. At least 1,600 Californians were turned away from legal aid organizations that focus more or less exclusively on San Francisco, LA, or San Diego counties, which the working group has decided to leave out of phase 1 of implementation for various reasons. San Francisco because of the attorney density, LA because of the population size, and San Diego, they picked Orange County over San Diego. So that data, the big takeaway there is supports the working group's decision to focus on those 7 counties, including Sacramento, for civil justice gap reasons, among others. I'll just pause to see if there's any questions about that, because I always at risk of just pushing through. Okay.
Oh, Sharon,
Sharon.
sorry, before we get to Sharon, I just wanted to let everyone know Linda Katz has confirmed that the PowerPoint that Julianne had mentioned is in the Dropbox. And thank you, Linda, for doing that. Sharon?
Thank you. So I'm always concerned about pipeline of potential paralegals. I'm wondering, out of the pool of folks who did not pass the bar, what was that number for these regions?
It's a great question. We had a slide on it for the February 16th meeting, and I can go pull the slide, Sharon, if it's okay, when I have a down moment, maybe when the group is discussing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note and highlight it for myself though to grab it for you.
I'm also wondering,
Maybe Linda can look for it because she just put that slide, that PowerPoint in the Dropbox.
oh.
I do have that. It's in the, so the number of people in which county?
The counties that the working group is going to recommend. So there should be a slide in the February 16th deck.
Yes.
That explains the reasons why Alameda and Santa Clara were grouped together, and then Fresno, Merced, Tulare, and there might be a bullet point on each of those that says the number of legal professionals. If it doesn't say the number of legal professionals, there's another slide that has a table.
I realize also that this group is just a subset of folks who would potentially apply to become paraprofessionals. I'm wondering what the presence of paralegal schools in these counties, like if that's a measure that we should look at as well.
It is, and although we didn't create a slide for it because the ABA asked us to keep the data internal, I think it's okay. And Linda and Leah, let me know if this, is it okay for me just to say the number of schools in the counties that we got?
I think that should be fine.
For instance, we have data points on 4 schools for paralegal programs in Orange County. 2 in Sacramento. I'm just focusing on the counties that we're looking at. Most of them are in Los Angeles County. There are 3 in San Diego. There was 1 in San Francisco. 2 are in Santa Clara. And then we have like and then after that, there's just maybe 2 or 3 more counties that have just 1 program. So I won't mention those counties, but they're not the counties that the working group has recommended for phase 1. And Linda, if you think I can provide more data than that, I have the spreadsheet up in front of me. I can report it, but I wanted to be sensitive to the ABA's request.
I think we really need to not share information that would allow people to identify the graduates from each school. I think that was what, we really did confirm that we would keep that information internal and just use it for our analysis.
Yeah, and having analyzed it internally.
Yeah, there are 34, I believe it's 34 ABA approved paralegal programs in California. And my understanding is that all of these now are offering the certification program remotely. So even if you don't have a program in your particular county, I do think it's fair to say that there is statewide coverage. Many of these are being offered through community college programs, as well as Cal State universities.
Thank you. That's very helpful to know.
And I have the slide that shows the number of participants with the bar exam score under 1390. Is that what we were looking for before?
That was, yeah, I think that's what Sharon was asking.
So Orange County was 1,069. Alameda is 666. Santa Clara is 584. Sacramento has 436. Fresno is 141. And what were the other counties we're interested in?
Fresno or Merced and Tulare might have been too few to make the list.
Right, they're not on the list.
Thank you for pulling that, Linda.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. All right. And did anyone else have their hand raised that I missed?
Someone in the public has her hand raised. I believe it's a Ms. Dawn Ward. I wasn't sure if it was a question or if she had information she wanted to share as a data point. Do we want to inquire or have Ms. Ward speak later?
It is totally up to you. I'm happy to unmute Ms. Ward now if you like.
Maybe we'll just unmute Ms. Ward, see maybe she has a data point she'd like to share.
Great. All right, you are unmuted.
I hope you can hear me. I had a question more than a data point.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Ms. Ward. We might not be able to answer at this time, but we will, because we may get to your question or the answer to your question, but please state your question for us. Thank you.
I just had, you might be able to answer this one. I just had a question. You mentioned a few times that you've consulted with the ABA on paralegal programs in the state. And I was wondering if you were also counting in that the paralegal programs that are not approved by the ABA. And then you mentioned something, I think, about these programs being offered. Are you talking about a program for this particularly, or just paralegal programs in general that are offered for people in that county?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ward. Do you want to try to answer that, Leah?
Sure. So for initially, we have been focused on ABA certified programs simply because it's sort of the easiest way to try to get data. There are many other programs, and there are ways to become a certified paralegal under the Business and Professions Code without having gone to an ABA certified paralegal program. So that's accurate. It's really difficult to get data though from the other programs. And I think when we're talking about program, we're talking about paralegal program, not necessarily that those programs are going to pivot to offer the coursework necessary to become a paraprofessional.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, I'm going to advance to the next slide. Just make sure to skip one. Okay, so in addition to pooling data about the quote unquote turnaway rate for civil legal aid and the graduation data available to us for ABA approved programs, staff also went back and looked at the original data sets for the counties in Northern California that are north of the Bay Area. So you've kind of seen these tables before that originally they presented statewide data. Now these tables are just focusing on those counties that are north at about Sacramento and north. So this is in order of population size. Unsurprisingly, Sacramento County is at the top with over 1 million residents, a little under 4% of the state. Then it drops off with Sonoma and Placer being the next most populous. And you can see it sort of drops off at about the 10 ranking to be under 100,000 people in each county. As a reminder, the original recommendations from this subcommittee to the working group had counties with at least 250,000 people in it. So Northern California tends to be has its fair share of counties with fewer than 250,000 people. And I'm happy to tab back to these slides later in the meeting when the subcommittee is discussing which counties to recommend. The bar exam scores below 1390 in that 10-year period in order of, so again, this is sort of a proxy for interest in becoming a legal paraprofessional in that county. Sacramento is at the top, Sonoma, Placer, those are the same 3 counties at the top. And you can see when you get down to Yuba Lake, counties, it's very few. For justice gap measures, we looked at the same proxies for the civil justice gap. We looked at self-reported data from the counties' courts on pro-per litigants and family law cases in 2017. 2017 was the most recent year available to us, family law being one of the implementation practice areas. And as a quick reminder, the percent of pro-per litigants as a percent of filings can be more than 100% because both parties can be pro-per. So usually this is sort of almost the inverse of the population data. You tend to see the justice gap is bigger in counties that have fewer legal resources, which tend to be the counties that are the least populous. So Cluj, Lassen, and Yuba are at the top. And you can see the way down. There were 9 counties that didn't report their data to the Judicial Council. So it's Alpine, Amador, Del Norte, Glenn, Mendocino, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, and Sierra. And staff are going to present a recommendation. I'm going to describe 2 options we looked at, and then staff will make a recommendation to the subcommittee for its consideration. And then the other justice gap measure is attorney density data from the state bar. So just looking at Northern California again, focusing on the counties that have the highest disparity between residents and active attorneys. You can see Glenn, Lassen, Modoc, and Tehama at the top. And then it works its way down to counties that have more attorneys per resident. Okay, so staff looked at 2 really carefully, really they rolled their sleeves up with the data for 2 different approaches to recommending a Northern California region. One was what I'm calling a Shasta County anchor approach that included Sacramento. And so the working group's recommendation from February 26 specified that Sacramento needed to be included. So the Shasta County anchor is non-contiguous, and there's a map I can show you on the next slide. But essentially there's Shasta County, which is really kind of near the northern border. And then there's a Sacramento County anchor, a Sacramento County cluster. Both of these options sought a sufficient mix of potential client participants, paraprofessional participants, and civil justice gap measures. And in this round, we also considered the ABA data about paralegal graduations. And we spoke with working group member Judge Harper, who sits in Trinity County in Northern California, so that he could inform our analysis. The first approach is the one that staff and Judge Harper rejected, but I just wanted to show you what it was. The first one we looked at was the Sacramento, and I apologize that these red lines are kind of hard to see. You can see though at the bottom, there's the non-contiguous Sacramento County, and then the Shasta, Trinity, Tehama, Glenn, and Butte counties. We looked at this and we noted that it was a population of about 2 million residents, so kind of consistent with the cluster sizes of the other parts of the state. The client population would mostly be coming from Butte, Sacramento, and Shasta, and that's just in alphabetical order. The participant population for legal paraprofessionals would really draw only from Sacramento, and since it's non-contiguous with the rest of the cluster, it isn't really obvious that the legal paraprofessionals who might live and work in or near Sacramento will make their services available in the cluster that's a few counties to the north. So it's really only drawing from Sacramento. It did score really high in civil justice gap measures with Glenn and Tehama with having more than 1,000 residents per attorney. And then also Trinity having a high rate of self-representation in family law. The staff and Judge Harper were quick to find that this cluster likely would bring in too few legal paraprofessionals to serve the cluster to the north if it really needed to rely on Sacramento residents or those who live really close to Sacramento. The recommended approach, the approach that Judge Harper and staff both liked, is this cluster here with Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer, and Yuba, which also balances participants in civil justice gap measures. It's about 2.2 million residents, against, comparable to the other clusters in California. It would draw its client population mostly from El Dorado, Placer, and Sacramento. Both Placer and Sacramento would be the primary sources of legal paraprofessionals, and that's corroborated by the ABA graduation data. And it also has high civil justice gap reasons for picking it. El Dorado has a high rate of self-representation in family law, and Yuba has a low attorney density, as well as a high rate of self-representation in family law. There was a sense that these 4 counties, Yuba, Placer, El Dorado, and Sacramento, sort of the data suggested them, but Judge Harper and I think staff also sort of felt that you could probably, swap out one of these counties for like Yolo or Sutter. They're all very similar in their data points. This is sort of the optimal configuration if you're just looking at the proxies for which we have data. And data from the ABA strongly supports clustering the counties near Sacramento, since that is where legal paralegals graduate and likely live and work nearby. All right, so our last few slides is input from the field. So the Office of Access and Inclusion met with legal services providers that currently serve the 7 recommended counties: Orange County, Fresno, Merced, Tulare, Alameda, Santa Clara, and also Sacramento. And we distilled from this conversation the following common takeaways. They note for the subcommittee that it will be important, very important, to allocate sufficient new resources to regulation of the new profession, that the State Bar is already, their impression is that the State Bar is already stretched pretty thinly, and with its existing resources on regulating attorneys and investigating complaints against attorneys. So it will take significant new resources to add a new profession to regulate. It will be important to minimize paraprofessionals charging for cases that attorneys would take for free. And there might be a public education component to that, making sure that Californians know what cases legal aid attorneys will take for free. It'll be important to dissuade charging for unmeritorious cases, to enforce the boundaries for paraprofessionals, and to set clear evaluation metrics in advance. We heard from multiple providers that family law seemed to make the most sense to them of the implementation practice areas, which again are family, housing, and collateral criminal. They thought eviction clients typically qualify for free legal help because to be in an eviction situation, often your resources are very low. So they typically qualify for legal aid, and they typically can't afford their rent. They probably won't be able to afford to pay a legal paraprofessional, was their thinking. And they're concerned that unscrupulous actors will get away with abuses, including posing as paraprofessionals, if the resources for regulation are too low. Duan, did you want to add anything from our conversations with the legal services providers? My next slide is about our conversation with the self-help centers. Okay. And then our input from the Superior Court self-help centers, and a big thank you to working group member Sarush for helping us coordinate this meeting. So the self-help centers wanted the subcommittee and the full working group to know, or to remind them, that they generally can't refer clients to folks who charge. So they wouldn't, to the extent that these paraprofessionals would be charging for their services, the self-help centers are not going to be a robust source of referrals for them. They also generally can't help someone who is represented. So to the extent that someone is receiving representation from a legal paraprofessional, the self-help center might not be able to serve them like they once could. There might be a way that they can provide some services if the paraprofessional's work is unbundled, or if it's on an issue that the legal paraprofessional can't help with. Maybe it's outside the bounds of what a legal paraprofessional can do. The self-help centers expressed a very similar concern as the legal aid providers that the state bar, to the extent the state bar might be unable to keep up with complaints about attorneys, it would take considerable new resources to ensure that it can investigate complaints about legal paraprofessionals. And it will be very important to inform the public about their options, including self-help centers, pro bono options, and legal aid, as well as their protections in the legal paraprofessionals scope of work specifically, like what legal paraprofessionals can and can't do. They wanted to note, so this is also from the self-help centers, they wanted to note for the subcommittee that they currently correct quite a few issues from legal document preparers and question whether or not currently accountability is missing for that group. And if so, how can that be avoided for the legal paraprofessionals? They suggested the accountability mechanism. This was just one example, but they said accountability mechanisms such as attaching names to filings if the paraprofessional is charging for their services would be really helpful. And then finally, they suggested that lawyer referral services might be a great way for folks to find paraprofessionals, that would be the optimal source of referrals for this new class of professionals, and could perform some quality assurance via client feedback. So that's so thank you for your patience with staff's presentation. It was a little extra data. I will turn it back to our chair, unless Dwan or Leah wanted to add anything, especially since they both were able to join or Fariba, since they were all able to join the conversation with self-help centers, and that was the last thing I was talking about.
Thank you, Christopher. Well done. And let's see if Leah, Dwan, or Fariba would like to say anything.
I don't have anything to add, Chris, but thank you.
Leah?
Sure. I just wanted to say that kind of a consistent concern we've heard is about the state bar's capacity, ability to regulate this new class of licensees, specific concerns about the unauthorized practice of law and sort of taking advantage of vulnerable communities. And I wanted to remind both the working group members on this call, as well as the public that might be listening, that on May the 5th, we are having a special joint session of the Regulation and Discipline Subcommittees of the working group. And that session is dedicated to UPL having a better understanding of the tools that the state bar and district attorney's offices have currently to address the unauthorized practice of law, and identifying ways in which adding this new class of licensees might ameliorate or exacerbate existing problems in that. And then we will spend some time kind of brainstorming on a wish list of, primarily, I believe it will be statutory changes that might be effectuated to enhance the ability of both the state bar and DAs to prosecute the unauthorized practice of law. So just wanted to mention that because I think that that was a recurring theme, certainly in our conversation with self-help centers. And I know we've heard quite a lot of concern from legal services about the impact of adding a new licensee on the existing problem of the unauthorized practice of law.
Thank you so much, Leah. And then Fariba, did you want to add anything?
I just want to reiterate Leah's comments about the concerns we heard from my colleagues. And when I joined the work group, I was in their shoes. Not that I've participated so much. I'm in a little different place in thinking that there could be a viable program where we have good actors that are regulated, who have good faith, and they want to do good ethical work. The concerns are, however, that if a certain group of professionals don't want to be licensed but want to keep doing the work they're doing, then what's the point of having a program? Because those are the bad actors. They're going to continue working, doing the bad work they're doing, and they're going to choose not to be licensed. And they're allowed to do the same work without being licensed. Then again, what's the point of this new program, and who are they protecting here? So So I'm glad we're gonna have a joint meeting because that topic really needs more detailed discussion.
Okay, thank you, Fariba. So at this point, I saw two hands in the public, but one was Ms. Grijalva and one looks like it's Mr. Lee. But I wanted to check first with the working group members to see if anyone had any questions about what Christopher presented. If you want us to go back to any slides, then go to the public to see if they have any questions, and then go through to discussion. It might bleed into each other in our questions and discussion, and that's fine. Sharon, you have your hand up.
You, Joju. So another theme that I keep on seeing over and over again is this need to have a public education campaign, or to better inform the public what their options are. I wonder if it's in the purview of this group at some point to potentially brainstorm on what that might look like and to make recommendations.
I would support that, Sharon, because I think I've mentioned in the past that maybe it's even part of the disclosures that need to be made, you know, including services in different languages and things like that. Any other questions or comments from the working group members before we go to the public and then come back to our discussion? Okay, so let's go to the attendees. Ms. Grijalva had her hand up. It seems to be taken down. I'm going to give her time to put her hand back up if she'd like to, and we could go to Mr. Lee. And you have 2 minutes, Mr. Lee, if you have any questions or comments.
You should be off mute now.
Thank you. I had a quick question. I'm a member of CALDA, the California Association of Legal Document Assistants. And one of the questions I was wondering, if in the pilot program, would our paraprofessionals be required to be a resident or have a physical office in one of the selected counties? Because right now I'm in Palm Springs, and which is in Riverside County, and I'm bonded and registered in this county, but I can provide my services to members or residents of any county in the state, and I don't have to register or be bonded in that county unless I have a physical office, or that's my primary place of business. And I was wondering, has there been any discussion or thoughts in terms of what paraprofessionals might be required to in the pilot program and then in a fuller statewide scheme?
That's a good question, and there has been discussion. And may I ask staff to please answer the question?
Yeah, do you want to do that, Chris? Because I think you.
Yeah, and I apologize if I missed the part of the question, but the full working group has passed a resolution that contemplates a rollout of counties where the case would have to be within the jurisdiction of that county's court system, but the client and the legal paraprofessional could live and even work outside of those counties. But the legal matter with which the legal paraprofessional is assisting would have to be within the jurisdiction of one of those rollout counties. And then once it's implemented statewide, that won't even be relevant anymore. It would be every county.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Ms. Grijalva, I didn't see you put your hand back up, so perhaps your question was answered. So unless there's anything else from the public members, this is maybe your last opportunity to raise your hand and weigh in, because we're going to go. Okay, so we see another hand. That's Sergio Benavides. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a concern that some of the proposals being considered or thought of are going to result in a massive override of legal services. And I'm not sure what kind of ethical protections are being built into place so that the public is not harmed. Very concerned about that. I'm a licensed attorney, and I've been hearing that people who are not licensed attorney will be offered the ability to go into court and write motions and do all these things that normally has not been the purview of non-attorneys. And I think it's opening the Pandora's box to some dangerous activity in the name of profit where the public could be really harmed. So I'm just wondering what kinds of oversight or protection is going to be built in so that these non-attorneys who are going to be practicing some form of law are not overstepping and are not going to be hurting the public by giving the wrong advice or doing the wrong kind of work.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Benavides. And I would invite you to come to that May 5th joint meeting. What time is that on May 5th, Leah?
I believe it's at 10 a.m. Is that right, Linda? 10 to 12 or 12 to 2?
It's noon to 2.
Noon to 2. Thank you for Reba. I tried to look for it quickly in my email. I couldn't find it. So thank you. And please come to that meeting. And your concerns are shared by many working group members. And so it's definitely on the radar. So thank you, Mr. Benavides. Anybody else from the attendees? Otherwise, we'll go into our discussion. Looks like Ms. Grijalva, your hand is back up. Did you want to say anything? I think you're unmuted now, Ms. Grijalva.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I guess I wanted to just provide some feedback, and I appreciate you taking the moment. And I was deliberating whether to say this or not. But one of the things that I heard is that the concerns was during the presentation is that for the document preparers, that there's a lot of corrections that had to be made on files prepared by document preparers. I would say, and I'm sure the panel is aware of this, that goes that the same goes for attorneys. The certified family law practitioners or not, issues occur county by county because those local nuances that we all are aware of. In addition, I would like to say that I am here in Sacramento. I do plan on applying for the program. And I service, if it helps, I service all their surrounding counties. I'm in North Natomas. And so I get Sutter, Solano, Yuba, Yolo especially, because it's so close in proximity. But the majority of the clients, honestly, that are underserved are the Spanish-speaking clientele, because even though there's a lot of self-help, I find that the majority of them aren't getting the support they need in the manner through which they need it. So just that little, and I'll cut short. Thank you so much.
That's very interesting information and input. So thank you so much, Ms. Grijalva. I think for me, you're the first person I've heard who said you're going to apply. So I don't know if you saw, I had a big smile. That's great that you are interested in the program. And yes, it's very important to understand the language access issues. Finally, I agree. Having had a self-represented litigants civil calendar for a year, that there are often changes that need to be made to the documents, whether they're prepared by a official preparer, by an attorney, and often by self-represented litigants. And usually it is more helpful to have someone help the self-represented litigants to be less iterations of changes. So thank you so much. Looks like there's no further comments or questions from the public. So why don't we launch into, okay, there's one from CDP staff. Let's see, you have 2 minutes. If you could please identify yourself.
Hi there. Sorry, logged in with my Works account, but my name is Karina Alvarado, and I work, in fact, for a legal document preparer based in Walnut Creek called Guideway Legal. And I just wanted to state that I do appreciate Sergio's concerns, the attorney who spoke a moment ago. I wanted to state that legal document preparers don't want to step on anyone's toes. They just want to be able to provide access to justice. I don't think that you'll see that legal document preparers will be competing with attorneys, because attorneys are working at a level that's different from what we're trying to achieve here with this paraprofessionals group. So although I understand that there is a great concern about the ethics and whatnot, that's precisely what this committee is convened for. It's to discuss exactly how we're going to address all those issues. So I look forward to further work from this committee, from the State Bar, from everyone involved. I thank you very much for all of your time and your resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarado, for your comment. It's very informative and appreciate it. And then Mr. Floyd has a comment, and you have 2 minutes. I think you're unmuted now, Mr. Floyd.
So we've given you permission to talk, Mr. Floyd, but you might have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Inevitably, there's going to be mistakes made by the paraprofessionals in whatever area of law that they are going to be practicing. Has anyone reached out to the insurance industry to determine the cost and availability of errors and omissions insurance. I could understand that it would be quite prohibitive for someone who's starting out a tabletop business. But I'm just wondering if anybody has addressed that and brought in the insurance industry to cover that issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Floyd. And that issue has been addressed in a number of meetings. We've looked at what other jurisdictions have done and whether there should be a bond and how much the bond should be, and et cetera. I will ask staff if they want to elucidate a little bit further, and then we'll probably go to our discussion.
Okay, I'll ask Linda to take that question.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Sure. We have reached out to some insurance providers in California, and well, mainly we were in contact with Lawyers Mutual, and the insurers in California aren't really ready to give us an estimate of what it would cost because they don't know what the license is. So that's the challenge. We did, however, talk to representatives of the insurer that insures the paraprofessionals in Washington, the LLTs. They are required to have malpractice insurance, and they are interested in coming into the California market. And I think that the rates that they discussed were very reasonable. We also really interestingly talked to in Ontario, Canada. There, the insurance is quite low. I think it was like $300 Canadian per year for $1 million coverage, again, Canadian. But so, and I think that the rates for paraprofessionals tend to be lower than the rates for attorneys, is the information we've gotten so far. But that is something that we'll be exploring. That's one of the recommendations from the regulation subcommittee, is to encourage paraprofessionals to have malpractice insurance, even though it wouldn't be required, and to work with the insurance providers to ensure that there is available coverage.
Okay, all good questions. Thank you. So in the interest of time, I think we should get to our discussion. And I'd like to invite the working group members, the subcommittee members, to let us know if you have any additional questions or thoughts. And thank you so much, Christopher. I think you were putting up the recommendation. Who would like to go first? And you know me, I'm probably going to go to everyone to make sure that everybody's had a chance to say something. Fariba, can I check in with you first since you were involved in this process?
Yes, you can. I'm so sorry. I had to take an urgent call. Can you tell me what the inquiry is?
Yes, we're moving into the discussion at this point, Fariba, to see if anyone wants to be heard on the recommendation, has any questions or thoughts or requests for modifications.
So as this was being presented in terms of, you know, what Sacramento being the anchor and what other counties to go with, I kept thinking to myself that, I mean, I don't know if I have a preference. I definitely think it's a great idea. I mean, Sacramento County people had a lot to say. I mean, the Self-Help Center people had a lot to say during our meeting. They do see a lot of people, a lot of problem cases, let's put it that way. So there's a lot of need, there's a lot of litigants there that could use the services. So I think it's a good pilot area to add. If the question is whether I have any opinion on which counties to include with Sacramento, I do not. I would just refer to the research that has been done and stay. Listen, if we can include as many people as possible and keeping it in a pilot phase, then that's what would be my recommendation. So was there a difference between the population?
No, that's very helpful. Thank you, Fariba.
Okay.
Sharon?
For me, it was really helpful to get the legal aid feedback as well as the self-help feedback. Excellent comments in both of those categories. And for me, in looking at a pilot program and potential counties, it's not just a matter of looking at what the attorney density is, or how many law graduates may apply, but also which of these counties have a solid infrastructure to support such a program? Which of these counties have court systems that would collaborate with something like this, or, you know, play into it? And also having a legal aid presence. The comment about having potential people who pose as paraprofessionals as just another form of notarial fraud is one that really sticks in my head, because like I know that to be true just based on my work. And as many eyes and ears that we can have in these pilot counties would be helpful for the success of this program, in addition to the other factors that Christopher has laid out.
Thank you, Sharon. And I agree with that. And that's why I think the contiguous counties has more, I don't know, more oversight, possibly more people are involved, and you don't have sort of this disjunctiveness. I'm just going to go down the face, you know, boxes. So I'm sorry if I'm not asking you to speak earlier than others, but Steve, you're next on my little face map.
Okay. Are we at the point now where we could start contacting the presiding judges in the counties we're considering to see whether they're willing to, I guess they don't have to give their permission, but would they be a willing participant in the pilot program?
So Steve, this is Joanna Petra, if I could just jump in for 1 second. And as I mentioned earlier, we have not aggressively sought conversations with the presiding justices. We have done an initial reach out, to which we honestly have not received much of a response as of yet. And we're waiting on going back to push a little harder, because we need to have a better sense for what our program is. And when we ask for example, to speak with someone who's handling the unlawful detainer matters or the family matters, then you always get a great response of, here's my person, talk to them. But kind of a broad, would you be interested? Or can we talk about what this would look like in our county? I just anticipate, based on experience to date, that we're not going to have much of a conversation without there being a more fully formed proposal. And also, honestly, everyone is so overwhelmed and overworked, and presiding judges are only in place for a couple of years, such that by the time the program were to roll out, we're not even talking to the same people. So I'm not trying to minimize our work or say that it's irrelevant to speak to them, but I think it's of limited utility.
Okay, thank you. Fariba?
Could we clarify one more time as to what we're expecting from the self-help centers and the courts in this pilot? Is data, right? We're expecting feedback, right? As the program rolls out?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's a really, I think two things Justice Petra said are really good points. One is the program is not rolling out until 2023, so the players are different in the courts, but we're always going to be short on resources. I don't know. In 23 years, I've never sat comfortable saying, I have enough staff, I can do everything.
Thank you for.
But it's doable. But it's doable.
Steve, did you want to comment further or have questions further, Steve?
I did have a question. I assume we haven't started reaching out to law schools or paralegal programs yet in the proposed pilot program areas, correct?
We have not done a targeted geographic reach out, but what has happened is I have been in communications with the board of the California Community Colleges to talk about the program writ large. And to talk specifically about the paralegal programs that are offered in a number of different campuses, and the viability of sort of having an add-on or a modification of the existing program so that folks would qualify to serve as legal paraprofessionals. And as I mentioned earlier, those programs all offer an online sort of modality so that you don't necessarily need to be in any particular county in order to access the program. So those conversations have happened. And we've also had a preliminary conversation with several deans from the California accredited law schools to talk about their incorporation of the curriculum as such that their graduates would automatically be eligible to sit for the paraprofessional exam. So those conversations have happened, again, more from a statewide perspective rather than a specific geographic one.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Fariba?
A follow-up question to Leah. During these conversations with the community colleges, is there any concern that this new group of professionals are totally different than the current paralegals they're educating, especially with regards to representation, full representation, especially with regards to how close to role of attorney they're taking on? So do they think that this belongs, and I don't know if you had a conversation about that, but does this really belong in law schools, like a different program in a law school, or does it belong in a community college, especially trial techniques and ethics and legal advice and things like that?
So because I've been talking to 2 members of the board of trustees of the system, it's been a higher level discussion, a very interesting one to see how they make decisions about programs to add. A lot of it is an analysis of the viability of the profession, and they're very interested in understanding how much these paraprofessionals might earn. So it's a really interesting lens, but that's been the focus rather than looking at the specifics of the curriculum. So I think that would be kind of the next step with folks that are more hands-on in the paralegal education space. I will say we're really benefited as a group by having Julia Brennelson on our working group, because she teaches in one of those ABA certified paralegal programs at a community college in Sacramento. And so certainly, I think she believes that the programs do have the capacity to train the paraprofessionals as contemplated, and she's on the licensing subcommittee. So, so far my conversation with the board members has had a different focus, and I think is a bit more high level, but something we could discuss further. And I think Julia would be a great person to bring into the conversation.
And I remember Julia at one of our meetings actually went through all the various classes that are taught in her school in the paralegal program, and I was really impressed by how comprehensive it was. So let me check with Kimberly and see if Kimberly would like to say anything or has any questions.
I just have a question. Chris, could you go back to the slide with the counties on it? So just wondering, kind of on the side of, because I live in Sacramento, wondering maybe not going, what the comparison would be between El Dorado and YOLO, and what was the thought process for not grabbing YOLO and going with El Dorado, if there was any discussion about that?
Great question. Let me pull up my spreadsheet that has all the data points side by side. This will just take me about 15 seconds to pull it up.
Okay.
No,
And this might be a crazy point, but just thinking of individuals, for the most part, just like you said, it's going to be individuals that are coming out of Sacramento, probably going to these counties. And I'm just thinking the travel between like Sacramento and El Dorado is going to be very different between Sacramento and YOLO, depending on the time of year. I know that sounds crazy, but during certain times of year, it's going to be hard for an individual potentially to travel from Sacramento to El Dorado to be heard in court, just because of the travel and the weather. And I think just to kind of some of the public comments, I just am wondering if YOLO might give us a better group. And then I was wondering if we look at filings in each of those areas as well. And maybe that goes to Steve's question of meeting with the judges and seeing and looking at what filings happen and potentially would be available for these paraprofessionals. And so when we get to that point, that might give us more information there. But I just am curious about the difference in those 2 counties.
Great. So thank you for stalling while I pulled that up. So it was YOLO versus El Dorado. Looking at the side-by-side data, YOLO does have more people. It's 220,500 residents versus El Dorado's 192,843. The reason that staff ended up putting El Dorado in was because it had at least one civil justice gap measure indicating a need for another legal option for modest means and moderate income Californians. Its standout justice gap measure was its pro per litigants in family law cases in 2017. So YOLO's self-reported pro per litigant percent was 44% of litigants as a percent of filings, and Eldorado's was 83%. That was the only reason I can see from the data why that one was used instead of YOLO.
And that makes sense because it's a hard to reach area and probably less people. Okay. That really was my only question that I had. I was looking at what counties are around Sacramento, and then it is interesting thought, kind of what Fariba was talking about with the decision of the work group adding in the in-court representation, how that's going to change individuals potentially who would be going into this program, because you know, now that they would, I mean, they can always hand off the case, but it will be interesting to see that dynamic and how that kind of plays out with that additional venue that they will be doing. So that was it. That was the only thing I had to add.
Okay, thank you so much, Kimberly. Julianne, would you like to ask any questions or say anything?
Thank you. I live in San Diego, so, but I spent much of my career in Sacramento, but not in the courts. It was in the legislature and before administrative agencies. So I'm unfamiliar with many of these counties, and I would defer to staff and to those of you who live up in Northern California. In my view, staff's reason for rejecting the Shasta County cluster, which was that it would not attract enough paraprofessionals, is persuasive to me, and I have no reason to quibble with it. I don't want to lose that public comment from Angela Grijalva regarding the Spanish-speaking population in Sacramento County. I can't recall whether the regulation subcommittee has been looking at, I know they've been looking at all the disclosures and the informed consent documents. I can't recall whether they've looked at the extent to which those should be translated into other languages. So I just don't want to lose that comment.
Okay, thank you. Justice Petru, anything else you wanted to add besides what you had said earlier?
No, I mean, I concur with the comments regarding the importance of it being contiguous counties and all of it, but nothing different.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to others who are here and see if Greg would like to say anything or have any questions.
Thank you, Judge Yu. I guess my only question would be, it seems like this is the only cluster that would include 4 counties. And I'm just wondering if there are any transaction costs, for lack of a better word, that we should be considering anytime we're including another county. I understand that probably we combine 4 to make it comparable in population size to the other clusters, but I'm not sure whether or not Yuba would need to be added. I know that it meets some of the justice gap metrics here, but if it wasn't added, would there be some additional savings, and would it prevent or enable, I'm sorry, staff to monitor? Because I'm thinking of all the data that we need to gather in the pilot program, and just having another county, even though it may be less populous than the others, doesn't mean that it won't cost a lot of resources and money to gather that data that we need.
That's a good question. Christopher, did you want to address that?
Yeah, let me also tab back one slide just so you can see Yuba is the one that's kind of looks like it's like tacked on. It's contiguous, but like only a little bit. So yeah, if you just so you for speaking as an individual staff member now, not having consulted with like Dwan or Leah about this, but just my opinion is you could take Yuba out. You'll still have a 3-county cluster like Fresno, Merced, and Tulare is a 3-county cluster. It would only lower the population, the total potential, number of clients population proxy by 80,000. So it's still going to be over 2 million. It's going to be like 2.1 million. Yuba has very few folks who scored a 1390 or below on the bar exam in the last 10 years. It's only 4. The reason it got included was because of its high civil justice gap measures, 104% of litigants as a percent of total filings. So if you were to take one away, that would be the right one to take out.
Leah or Dwan, would you like to add anything?
I would say probably yes. There's some sort of cost associated with adding, more court systems. I guess I'm not, from a staff perspective, not too concerned about it, but I could go either way. I mean, it's a small court. There aren't going to be that many players there that we're trying to get information from or to partner with, which makes it easier. I think it'd be very difficult if we were adding a large number of large court systems, for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing as Leah. I think we could go both ways with the UBA, but given that it has a large kind of justice gap, the staff recommendation, I think, is to stand to include it, because I don't think it would be a heavy lift. It's not a large jurisdiction.
Thanks. Greg, anything further on that or anything else?
No, it was just something that was sticking in my mind, and thanks for responding.
Sure, of course. So then I guess I'm going to just go to the state bar staff. And Donna, are you here to just observe, or did you want to say anything at all?
I am just observing. I can't get there we go.
Okay.
Video going. I am just observing. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. And then Leah, did you want to say anything that you haven't said so far? Add anything?
No, thank you.
Dwan, anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, as Chris and I were kind of formulating the Sacramento piece, I'm so glad this got added. I know it wasn't originally contemplated, but as we spoke and we conferred to the other judge that was in this jurisdiction, it really made sense, because it's kind of, this region is very unique to the other kind of regions that we are suggesting. So I'm glad for the addition.
Thank you. Linda, did you want to add anything or say anything?
No, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. So then I believe we've covered everyone, and I'm coming back to you, Christopher, to see if you want to add anything or say anything.
Oh, thank you. The only thing I would add is, as Ms. Wilson and Ms. Nguyen were talking, I realized, Yuba, it's also on the slide. It's the only one that has a really low attorney density compared to the other counties. But that's the only thing I would add.
Okay, thank you. So unless there's anything else from any of the committee members, I think we might be ready for a motion.
And is this, would Linda and Leah, do we need a formal motion for this to go into the subcommittee's memo?
I don't think that you technically need a formal motion. I think if there's a general consensus, the memo can just reflect that there's a general consensus. I think unless anyone has a very strong feeling that they want to vote, I don't know that it's necessary.
Oh, that's a relief. I guess I'm used to some other experiences in other committees. Is there a consensus?
Yes, for me, Stephen Hamilton.
Thank you, Steve.
Me too.
Okay.
Too.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, from me also. Well, that's great. So now that we have a consensus and you'll be able to prepare your report, what would the next step be? And do you need anything else from us today, Christopher?
Thank you for asking. There's nothing else that staff need from the subcommittee today, unless Leah and Linda have something extra. But the next step is staff will prepare the subcommittee's memo to the full working group in May. And I believe the chair of the full working group and Leah would like to agendize this for the June 25th meeting. So we'll circulate, unless that changes, we'll circulate the memo to the subcommittee likely in late May, early June at the latest, for the subcommittee members' feedback, but we'll try and do it earlier rather than later, so it's still kind of fresh in people's minds.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, anything else from anyone on the subcommittee? So I guess that means that we are ending quite early. Anything else for the good of the order from anyone?
No, I just want to thank Chris and Dwan. They've done a great job.
Yes, I agree. And I am very grateful, and I thank them as well, as I'm sure all of us do. It's always great to work with you, Christopher, and Leah and Linda and Dwan. Thank you all so much. So I hope you all have a good rest of the day and enjoy your extra 40 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.